IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today we're going to have a very interesting discussion. We're going to be talking about something that many of y'all ask me on Instagram about stress and mental well-being. We're going to be talking about meditation, and in particular, a concept called Vipassanā. Now, I don't know anything about it apart from a little bit here and there. So I'm very, very excited to have this conversation with our guest today. And our guest is someone I've been wanting to have on our podcast for quite a while now. So I'm so happy that we're finally doing this. So let's welcome Shonali Sabherwal to the Habit Coach podcast. Shonali,
Thanks,
welcome.
Ashdin. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited that we're finally doing this.
Yes.
Shonali, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, please?
So I'm actually a macrobiotic nutritionist and a chef. And because I started my work and because macrobiotics is so centric on gut health, so then my core specialization is gut, work in that arena. And I started my career as a chef. So I ran a kitchen for 9 years where I was doing daily meals, services, lunch and dinner. And then I stopped that because I got too drained with it. And then I delved more into my consulting practice. So now I'm consulting people on lifestyle diseases and, all kinds of lifestyle diseases, from the autoimmune spectrum to cancer to, you name it. So it's all being done with the food approach of macrobiotics at the base. And I also marry it to Ayurveda.
So it is macrobiotics plus Ayurveda.
Yes. Because I use Ayurveda because I work with a very good Ayurvedic doctor. So he uses the plant-based combinations to help my clients, and I use the diet. So it's like non-invasive completely.
So, when you talk about lifestyle, and we're going to talk about macrobiotics in our next podcast, but in today's podcast, lifestyle and mental well-being is something that is very closely linked. Have
Absolutely.
you noticed a shift over the years in like a little bit more importance coming to mental well-being? Like, what is it that you've noticed in your clients?
So actually, the largest number of cases I got in the mental health arena was in the last 2 years. So I had from OCD to just depression to a lot of kids, like by kids, I mean late teens, early 20s, coming in for obsessive compulsive disorder, coming in for just body image issues, coming in for, adults coming in with a lot of mental stress. And in the pandemic, I have referred so many people to my psychologist and also taken so many people on. So I've realized in the last 2 years, it's really become crazy. But, mental health is such an important part of physical health, because as we say, the mind and the gut are connected. And it's a fact. And all of our diseases, because I do work in that arena too, have mental patterns. Every disease stems from a mental pattern. Every ailment that you have comes from a mental pattern preceding it. So if you rectify the mental pattern, it just helps you along faster to get better faster. So obviously there's a deep connection.
Wow.
Right?
Can you expand on this a little bit? Like what kind of connection, what kind of mental patterns and diseases?
So if I get deep, then I have to really go deep. So if you have had anyone, I don't know, on your podcast who talks about the chakra system. So we have chakras in our body, right? And each chakra holds on to a particular energy pattern. All right. In the same vein, I'm coming from traditional Chinese medicine with macrobiotics. So every organ, okay, of course you have a meridian line for every organ, but you also have every organ with its own emotion, negative and positive. So if you have the liver, it's anger. If you have the kidneys, it's fear. If you have the heart, it's grief. These are the negative emotions of the organs. And also every chakra is related to some kind of a pattern and some kind of a space in your life. Like Muladhara is root, the root chakra. So the root chakra has to do with issues of survival. Right? When you move up, Swadhisthana has other implications. And then you have the Manipura and so on and so forth. So when you look at these two systems together, because that's what I do, I come from these two systems. So I can only talk about these two systems. The Indian system of chakra, and when you're looking at the Japanese or the traditional Chinese medicine system, because macrobiotics is Japanese, but rooted in Chinese medicine, you're looking at these two aspects and then you're looking at how that's fueling a person. You know, so let's say a person comes to me for gut issues. On the surface, it's manifesting as a gut issue. But while talking to us in between, I'm gathering things from this person that this person also has latent anger issues. All right. So one is I've got to, obviously, every problem does stem from the gut. So there are gut issues. But I'm also seeing that this person has, so the questions in my booklet that I've asked him or her is giving me an idea of the person's personality. So when I look at gut, then I'm looking at the liver, because I'm saying, okay, his liver is also not good because he's got anger. That's the emotion of the liver. And then I go into some deeper questions. Okay. And then I say, okay, what is it that started this problem? You know, because I need to leave now this person with thoughts about questioning his or her mental patterns also. Because in the first meeting, I have to leave them with some thoughts to move forward. Right? And then I realized that, okay, it's because they've held on to some basic issues of maybe financial independence or sexual issues, you know. Then I know, okay, fine, it's something emerging from the root chakra. Okay.
Interesting.
So when you look at the client, then that is holistic. That's practicing holistically, because then you're looking at a client and you're looking at them as a full complex unit of just not the physical. Then your diet just doesn't become about protein, carbohydrates, and fat. It goes beyond and it becomes about the person. So now how am I going to help him flush his liver because his liver has anger? How am I going to help him or her address those basic issues that they are struggling with? So it's almost like you become this person who knows the psychology of the client, psychology of the food, and psychology of the disease.
Interesting.
So mind and body is very, very connected there.
And we're talking about Vipassana, right? What is it that Vipassana, or what is so special about Vipassana when it comes to the mind, and how does it work? Tell us a little bit about it.
First of all, a very old technique. It's nothing new. It's been proven repeatedly over time because there are thousands and thousands of people who go through courses every month, right? And to boil it down very simply, if you have to make your listeners understand, when there's a stimulus, there's a response to that stimulus. Always. That's how the mind reacts, right? So between a stimulus and a response, there's a reaction, right? The mind's habitual pattern is to react. And there is a gray area between a stimulus and a response. There's an awareness, all right? A lot of people don't have that awareness because they are reacting all the time to the stimuli that are coming their way. Vipassana helps you tap into that gray area, okay? Also, it makes you, when you tap into the gray area, you become an observer. So you become an observer to your own reaction that is going to come about. It's not even come yet. Okay. So simply put, Vipassana, if you boil it down to what sort of a technique it is, on a physical level, that's what it's trying to do. So all these management books say proact, don't react, right? So Vipassana is helping you achieve that because it's very simple. The conscious mind is what's giving the reaction that you're going to have as good or bad. Some bad person comes in front of you, you see the person, you react. Oh, horrible guy, terrible chap. I've known him. He's done this to me. He's done that to me, right? So your verbal reaction to that person is negative, right? When actually, if you just stopped yourself before that reaction happened, you knew how to do it, then there was no need to react because why should you generate negativity towards anyone? It's not important, you know. Why drop yourself to that level, right? So simply put, Vipassana helps you get to a state where it shows you why the mind is creating these reactions all the time. Simply put, that's Vipassana. I don't want to get into it too deep because then it's a whole deeper discussion. But someone will now probably think on your podcast that, well, what's the big deal then? How did Buddha get enlightenment? So then that's a whole other question because there are deeper shades to Vipassana, which I've highlighted in the book I've written. But the basic funda is this. It helps you tap into that space, which makes you an observer to your thoughts.
So, you know, like you were saying, there's a stimulus and there's a response that right now happens almost instantaneously.
Yes.
Right? How do you slowly start stretching that? Like, so is it a process? Like what?
Yeah, the only way to do it is meditation. So Vipassana is a technique. It's not religious. It's a technique. So once you learn the technique And because you change the habit pattern of the mind, you start going to the subconscious level to change it. One is the conscious level. Someone comes, you said something bad, you react, and some bad reaction happens because the mind, with all its past traumas, is reacting, not just for the physical. Suppose there's a person who comes into you don't like the person, you've heard he's done some financial crap, right? You're not only going to react to the person with what you know of the person, but you're going to react with your preconditioning of financial stuff in your life. How have your parents preconditioned you? How have you grown up knowing? What is your attitude? So you come with a heap of reaction. You don't just come with one reaction. It's a heap. So that heap of reaction is where you generate the negativity. Now we have to teach you to stretch that space, stretch it so much that you don't react. So you can have the most horrible people coming to you, or you can have the most terrible things being said about you, or you can be called so and so, but you're not going to react, right? Because you don't want to generate multiply your karmas and your reactions, so to say. So that technique is what Vipassana is. It's teaching you how to stretch that space of awareness.
Very interesting. And how do you define meditation in this context? Like, so many people talk about meditation, right? So what would meditation be? A nice big broad question for you.
I would say it's the response between a stimulus and a reaction, and that's where all the potential is. That's what meditation is. All the potential is in that gray space. Whether you want the potential to create things you want, manifest things you want, attract things you want, become a better human being, all that lies within that space. So if you can tap into that space, and there's a technique that is age-old in India, which shows you to do it, why would you not do it? That's my question.
Very interesting. And without deep diving into it, if you can lay out broad strokes, what does the technique typically look like?
What does it look like? Yeah, okay. So
like
the first thing they make you do is, the theory is that they need to take you down to your subconscious mind, which doesn't know good or bad. It's only the conscious mind which knows good, bad, ugly, black, white, red, blue, brown. Okay. The conscious mind is stuffed with reactions, stuffed with evaluation. It's always evaluating. It's always working, evaluating, giving this a name, giving that a name. The subconscious mind doesn't know anything. The subconscious mind only stores impressions, things go into it, okay? And the subconscious mind is in touch with bodily sensations. That's all the subconscious mind knows. It doesn't know good or bad. It just knows sensation. It's the conscious mind which says good, bad sensation.
So and even then pain is just a sensation.
It's just a sensation.
But our conscious mind says it's a bad sensation.
Conscious mind says it's bad. So when you're
Which is why some people like tickling, some people hate tickling. Right? It's the conscious mind that has chosen what that feeling is.
Yeah. So when you sit in meditation, sometimes, the first thing is our mind goes to gross. Your knees lock up, suppose. And you get this big pain sensation, right? So your conscious mind is saying pain, 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 open, 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 get up, get up, get up, right? And you stretch. You get up, you stretch, you walk around. Now that's a reaction, because that's the conscious mind telling you pain, pain, pain. Actually, under that pain, there's only subtle vibrations, because you are just energy. It's going deeper into the technique. You are made up of subatomic particles. We are nothing but a bunch of those subatomic particles. This form is also not us. The body is also not us, right? This ego inside us, you think there's a person sitting inside you, is not you. So those are the larger questions that Vipassana takes up. So now let's just look at pain, You're looking at pain, it's gross pain, you react. But actually the subconscious mind doesn't know good, bad. So Vipassana, in the 10 days that you do it, because it's a 10-day course, right? The first 3 days, they are teaching the mind to quieten down. So what they are doing is the breath becomes the bridge between the mind and the body, the matter, your body. Okay. So they are using the breath and bringing it to a space, one space under your nose. They are teaching your mind to bring the breath back under your nose above the upper lip, to sharpen the mind to such a pitch that it starts moving away from thoughts. Because the first enemy of the mind is thoughts. The first thing that the mind will latch on to is thoughts. All right. So that's the first 3 days. So they feel in about 30 odd hours of doing this technique, and it is a fact, it's proven, your mind does get calmer. It gets to a space of now going into the subconscious and accessing the subconscious realm. Now, once it accesses the subconscious realm, when you go to the subconscious realm, what are you going to get? Only sensations, because the subconscious doesn't know good, bad, ugly. Subconscious only knows sensations. So they teach you how to then go into the sensations, which is in a way going into the vibrational field of the body. All right. And dealing with the fact that your mind is still saying good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. So you get pain. You're sitting in meditation, you're observing. Sensation is saying bad, bad, get out of it, break out of this pose. I don't want it. I don't want it. But the strength lies in staying. So they have a practice that they call Adithan, where 3 times in the day that you go, for 1 hour, you're supposed to not move. It's tough. It's not easy. Okay.
No, not at all.
Not at all. But you're supposed to not move, because that's really testing the mind and trying to change, because the mind is so conditioned. No, it's changed. It's trained to think in a certain way. It's going to think in that same way. So now they have to undo that. To undo that, then you have the next 7 days of what they call Vipassanā Meditation, where they are taking you. And then he says, Goyanka ji, who brought the technique back to India after it disappeared from India, from Burma, says that the subconscious mind has, it's like a pus. Pus starts coming out, because when you make an incision into it, we have stored lifetimes of impressions in the subconscious. So it's not just this time, it's lifetimes. So what they call sankharas in Pali, in the language of Buddha, but karmas in the language of today. All our karmas are nothing but sensations coming up, nothing else. And again, if you go deeper, the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? We are made up of that. Our subatomic particles are these, the Pancha Mahabhutas. That's what we call it in Ayurveda also. So we are made up of these 5 elements. And our karmas are also coming with these 5 elements behind them, right? So whatever fuel we give our body, that's how the sensations come, right? And of course, so let's give you a small example. This is sounding very esoteric right now. When I started Vipassana, I was the most angriest person you'd ever know. Okay. I had a sankhara of anger. I had a dominating father. I had who used to shoo me away. I was the oldest child, girl child, Punjabi father. So I had a lot of anger towards him. I loved him to death, but a lot of anger. When I got married, my husband was also dominating. So a lot of anger of my father I was already carrying. My husband became the instrument to get that anger out, right? But I told myself one day, this was a year before I went for the first course, this is not me. I don't want to be this person. So if someone is calling me bad language, giving me bad language, I don't want to react to this person. I want to be the person who doesn't react. I want to be the Gandhi who says, give the other cheek. Okay. I don't want to be this. I want to be, because my father had told me one thing at the age of 16, that you have a gene of compassion and forgiveness. Never lose those 2 genes, because Sabherwals don't have it. So where you got it from, I have no clue, but hang on to it. So I've always remembered that, and I used to say, he used to tell me I was this person. How can I be compassionate with so much anger? Then I landed up at my first course. By then I had read every book there was to read on every spiritual guru that says, see things as they are, don't react, don't judge. Jiddu Krishnamurti. So I used to keep seeing the branch and say, I can't, sure, what does it mean? See things as they are. Someone is saying, don't judge, don't evaluate. I'm saying, okay, I won't judge, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because my human nature was not allowing me to do it. When I went for my course and I sat and I observed in the course, the way they teach it, the interplay between the mind and matter and how the mind reacts all the time, the habit pattern of the mind. And I changed that for 10 days. The first course was a 10-day course. The penny dropped on the 10th day for me. I always say that. But then I started practicing. I came home, I sat for an hour, I did the meditation daily, one hour every day. Went back for another course, 25 years passed. I didn't know where they went. And I realized today I'm the calmest person in my family. Okay, my mother turns around and tells me, and she's gone now, but she used to tell me, I don't know what happened to you, because I was type A. Like when you say type A to the nth degree, right? So the sankhara of anger, the karma of anger that I've carried for many, many lifetimes. I know it. And I may say this and it may sound odd to people that she's talking about this, but I'm very also tied to the concept of becoming a better person, becoming a better version of myself. And if I want to become a better version of myself, how the hell do I get rid of all these negativities that I have? Right?
Correct.
We all have them. We are not these Instagram perfect people that we could project out there. There's a dark side to every one of us. How do you conquer that dark side? That's what Vipassana teaches you on a very deep level.
So interesting.
We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Mustafa Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Welcome back. All right, let's jump into the conversation.
And how did this aspect of anger start leaving you? What was it? Was it a conscious step that you took through your meditations? Was it?
Yeah, it was just that when I sat in meditation, okay, the sensations that come up of the ones that you're going to react to the strongest are the most grossest ones. So the pain comes up first. Okay, so you go through the field of pain. Then you go through the field of irritation. Then you go through so I'm talking about these bodily sensations that come up when you're sitting in meditation are coming up and you're going through them. Now, you don't know which one is anger, but you know somewhere that I'm dealing with something because the body has only known sensations. The body has flow of consciousness, only knows that. Doesn't know anything else. Now I'm going deeper. So you've got to read the book to understand all of that. But anyway, the bottom line is, as I went through life and I practiced, and I see it's like the body. The more you exercise, the better we get. The more you exercise, the stronger you are. If you're not going to exercise your mind, you're going to go for a 10-day course, come back and then do jack, nothing's going to happen. Right? You got to go, come back and sit for meditation. Whether you do it for half an hour, whether you do it for 20 minutes, whether you do it for 1 hour, you have to sit. So I did that. I was a very earnest student because I said, I've taken it up. It makes sense to me. I want to see where I go. Now, 25 years later, do I have anger? Yes, I do. But on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, I'm 9.9. And that's a big achievement for someone like me. So I realized that when I sat in meditation and I kept going back for courses and I sat and I went back and I sat, all right, it became a part of my life. Now, I'm not telling people to go out there and do the same thing. No, it should make sense to you for you to do it. But that one course changed the course of my life. Okay. So because I sat today, I can deal with situations without reacting. I can keep them at a distance without reacting. I can, and my capacity to work is not just this, it's this. It's gone like, it's a lot. Like when I say yes to things and take it up, I'm like, oh my God, how did I do this? You know, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. I'm wearing so many hats. It's just this sheer energy of plugging into the universal consciousness every single day. You know, so it happens slowly. It doesn't happen fast. It takes time. It's a lot of perseverance. But then you got to understand and ask yourself that how serious are you about really wanting to work through your issues? That's the big question.
You know, it's so interesting that you said that I can do so much now with the same amount of time. It's because what happens is that when we also start clearing up all this stuff that's there in our mind, all the baggage that we're carrying, we end up getting so much more energy. Because our mind is not so preoccupied in thinking about judgment, thinking about perceptions, thinking about this, thinking about that. So you can move from one thing to another very, very fast.
So one thing I've said actually in the book that I've written is reclaim your mind space. It's very important. We forget that. We forget that by hanging on to things in our life, we are cluttering our mind and filling it up with stuff. And mind actually needs that space.
Correct.
The mind needs a clean canvas that you can paint your own colors into. The mind can't be cluttered because then you're not going to have that energetic space, right? So that's what I say, reclaim your space and then make space for grace. We are no longer graceful people anymore. You know, we've become these horrid creatures that are going through our life. And this morning I had a conversation with a friend. I was talking to her after 3 months. Okay. And I really like this girl. I mean, she's a very dear friend of mine, but she just reacted. She was so short with me. Like, she was like, okay, go on. What do you want to tell me? I was like, I'm talking to you after 3 months. All I've talked to you is for a 3-minute conversation. In that 3-minute conversation, if you're going to be rude with me, I'd much rather not have the conversation with you. But I've seen that our country has gone through such a shift with the economic boom, with social media, with people's lives getting busier, with people becoming more individualistic in COVID, during the pandemic, that we're not graceful people anymore. We've lost that grace, So that's why I say, if you reclaim your mind space, then you can reclaim your grace. You become a much better person gracefully.
I love this concept of grace. Many years ago, we were having a discussion, friends of ours, and I think I made a podcast also on this, I can't remember, on grace, because it is a word that we don't use at all in our lexicon nowadays, but it's actually how we should be living gracefully.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah?
I totally agree.
Shonali, what do you say for people who keep saying, oh, I can't meditate. I can't meditate. I can't meditate. What's their deal there?
So I would say start with, if you want to meditate, first of all, you have to have the intent. I can't meditate, but I'd like to do it. There's a person who will say, I can't do it because I don't want to do it. Right? If you want to do it, but you can't do it, then you start with the first step of Anapana meditation, where you bring your breath to the space below your nose, above your upper lip, and start training the breath to stay here. Now, if you start with 5 minutes, you can increase it to 10 minutes next week, and then 20 minutes, and then so on and so forth. Because what that does is it starts training the mind and the breath to start moving away from other thoughts and become more subtle. We go into gross every day, right? We want you to come to subtle breath. So if you can start with that, I would say that's a very good place to start the meditation. But it does mean choosing a time that is conducive. It does mean sitting at a time where you won't be bothered and looking at your phone. Like when I get up in the morning, it's usually 5 to 6. At that time, there's nothing. That time of the day is the most sacred part of my day. There's no looking at phones, answering bells. I'm no one's sister. I'm no one's mother. I'm no one's daughter. I'm no one's auntie, nothing. I'm no one's counselor. It's just me, not in a selfish way, but it's just my time. It's a time of energy. It's a time of plugging into the universal consciousness, I call it. So you must have one such time in the day where you can take that, even 10 minutes off. And if you can start with this process that I'm telling you, then it's great because you'll tap into it. You'll start training the mind.
Lovely. So training the mind, at least starting. And when you mean by get your attention of your breath to your nostril, just the upper lip, you're saying that don't think about the breath in your chest, don't think about the breath in your stomach. Is that what it means?
No. It's just observing the flow going in and coming out. And when it goes in and coming out, it's going to touch parts of your nostril. So you're going to feel it when you start observing the breath. It's not pranayama breath. So you're not regulating it. It's natural, normal breath going in and coming out, but only on this part of the body. Only under your nose, above the upper lip, in this triangle, right? What starts happening is because you're not aware of the breath in the chest, because you're not aware of the breath in the lungs, because you're not aware of the breath in the abdomen, because you're only aware of this. The mind starts now coming back to this. He calls it like, think of it like you're taking a dog, putting a leash around it, and this is your pole. You're bringing it to this pole. This is the way he describes it, S.N. Goyanka. So you're bringing this dog, you're training the dog with the leash and tying it here to the pole. All right? This is the way you've got to observe it. So think of it that way. I feel that visual of taking a dog with a leash, tying it to a pole is very apt because that gives you a clear description of what you're supposed to do. That's how simple it is.
It can go away, but has to come back.
You have to keep bringing it back. You will jump. Don't expect it to be a free, I did it. No, nothing like that. The mind's natural habit pattern is to go to, oh my God, I got this presentation today. I got to make that phone call. Oh my God, I got to call the electrician to do this. Oh, I got to fix. But the mind will jump, but you got to keep bringing it back.
Very interesting. When people say that meditation is all about thoughtlessness, is there thoughtlessness there or is there no thoughtlessness there?
There is. That's what this technique is trying to achieve, right? So when it is training your mind to come here, you're giving the mind a single task. You're telling the mind, this is your task for the next 10 minutes. You got to come back here. 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 So what's going to happen to the thoughts? The mind is now not being told
The
to
thoughts
go to
reduce.
that thought.
It's never
It
blank.
It reduces.
It's
So
not
what
like a
happens
blank movie screen or like a blank space.
No,
or anything.
your
It's not
mind will
that.
run. Now, depending upon where you're at, your mind will run.
Hmm.
Now, whether you're going to have many things flashing in your mind, that's going to happen. But what you're doing is you're giving your mind a single task now. Every single day you get up and you make an intent for 1 week. I will only do this for 10 minutes, suppose 5 minutes. You're giving the mind that task. So you'll realize by the 5th day, your mind now, it's become easier for it to do this. It's become much easier for the mind to do this. And over time, imagine if you go for a course, of course, you'll achieve this thing. But over time, you can just imagine the place that you can get to if you stretch it. And if you, at Vipassana courses, you have no stimuli, you have no phone, you have no writing material, there's no social media, there's no television, there's nothing. So imagine over 10 days, if you're doing it for 10.5 hours a day, what is it going to do for you?
Right? So interesting. When I was in Japan, I was being taught by this monk, there's Zen Meditation that they teach out there. And it was so interesting. So he started off by focusing on breath. Then we did another round where he said, now focus on your breath plus the sounds around you. Now focus on the breath plus the taste in your mouth. Plus focus on your breath plus keeping your eyes slightly open just so that light comes in. And it was a very interesting way of thinking about observing without judgment. Right? So you observe these things. So it's not why is that water going tapak, 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 tapak. Is that there is tapak, tapak, tapak. Right? And it was an expansive thing about bringing in more of the stimuluses into your brain without necessarily judging it.
Judging them. Yes. Right? So the thing is, that's exactly what they were trying to teach you, that don't judge it. Let those stimuli come in, but don't judge them. Now, it's very it's easier said than done. Over our life, and our life takes over, that doesn't happen. Okay, this much I can tell you because I've done this. I've done it over 25 years. So I've done it. I've read every management book. I've read every spiritual guru. I have read the Bhagavad Gita. I have understood Osho. I have understood Nisargadatta Maharaj. I've gone in, done this. I've realized, look, boss, it's very simple. If you don't make someone sit and practice and actually see what happens to the mind when you're sitting with no stimuli, it's not going to work. Okay, so I'm my own living experiment. All right.
If you don't do, nothing changes.
Seen my life change. I have seen how I deal with people. I have seen how I interact in my life with people. I've seen my capacity to work. I've seen how much compassion that my dad said, you have this gene has grown. I have seen how I'm not tied to this life. I am not tied to the money I have. I am not tied to the books that I write. I am not tied to the things that I do, but I still do them. Right? Not tied to the legacy that someone asked me on a podcast, what's your legacy? I think that I said to them that question's driven by ego. Pardon me, I don't even think of that. Because I am living my legacy. My podcast with you is my legacy, right? It's creating something of value for the audiences. This is what I'm tied to. So when I look at my life from that perspective, then what happens is everything else falls away. It becomes so easy, because you're not tied to anything,
Okay, it genuinely is.
Yeah.
So easy. Lovely. Shonali, tell us a little bit about the book. What is it called? How can people get it?
So it's called Vipassanā, the Timeless Secret to Meditate and Be Calm, which it is. And it's available on Amazon and on Flipkart.
Perfect. So you can get your book out there. How can people reach out to you and follow what you're doing and interact with you?
So the book has my number, but I'm very transparent. I have my email ID on my Instagram account. I have it on my website. You can reach out on an email if you're having problems. That would be the best. I'm happy to take in any emails about the technique. You're having difficulty, no problem at all. You want to call, request it, I'll call you. Happy to help.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Shonali. I absolutely loved this episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashdin. Thank you.
So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME 180. That's awesome 180.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Raw and Organic, Ekta Sabherwal, founder of Savage app, deconstructs the online versus offline fitness debate with Kunal Rajput. On the Filter Coffee Podcast, Rajneesh Kumar, former SBI chairman, talks to Karthik. They discuss his journey with the bank. On Smarter with Sid, learn how to spot the most obvious thing with the help of the invisible gorilla experiment. On Marathi Kirkitun, Rajiv and Manik reveal the flavor of G.D. Madgulkar's lesser-known poem, Visartha Visrena. And on Hansvani, hear how a lonely man finds a purpose to live in the story Kachara Baba. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. We'd also really appreciate any ratings or reviews you can give us on any of the platforms that we're listening on, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, or IVM Podcast app. Wherever you're listening, do let us know that you are listening. I'd also like to remind you all that we have a number of YouTube channels where a number of shows are available. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube to check out what channels we have. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intel. Thank you so much for making this possible.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshit. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Naan Curry podcast every Wednesday. सिर्फ IVM podcast ऐप या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.